The movie begins with 3 identical cars hijacking a truck full of electronics. We're then introduced to Brian O'Connor, who goes to a place called Toretto's on his lunch break to keep an eye on Dom Toretto and to flirt with Dom's little sister Mia. While eating, they hear Dom's crew Letty, Leon, Vince and Jesse pull up. Vince doesn't like Brian since he also likes Mia and doesn't like that she shows Brian more attention than she has ever shown him. So when Brian is leaving, him and Vince get into a fight, but thankfully Dom is there to stop them. Later that night, Brian goes to a street race, and with newly acquired NOS, Brian feels confident enough to street race, even confident enough to race against Dom, but Brian doesn't have any money, so he wagers his car's pink slips. Unfortunately, Brian loses and Dom wins, meaning Dom wins Brian's car. Right after Dom wins, the police raid the race, causing everyone to flee. Dom leaves his car inside of a parking garage to try and escape on foot. However, a cop drives by and is able to recognize Dom, so Dom runs. Brian is able to get to Dom and pick him up before the cops, and while trying to evade the cops, Brian accidentally drives into Johnny Tran's territory. Brian and Dom are led to a parking lot, and since Johnny and Dom aren't exactly best friends due to many reasons, when they see Dom in their territory, they aren't too thrilled about it, and Johnny and his cousin Lance shoot the car until it explodes. As a thank you for keeping him out of jail, Dom invites Brian to his house for some beers and tells him that he never got the keys to the car and that Brian owes him a 10-second car. The next stage revealed that Brian is actually an undercover cop trying to find out who's been hijacking the trucks, and they think it's someone within the street racing community and that Dom knows who it is. Brian then goes over to Dom's garage with a destroyed car and tells Dom that this is his new car. Dom just laughs at it until they pop the hood and it's revealed that the engine is still in good shape, and Dom tells Brian that when the car is finished he will need to race it at Race Wars, a big racing event in the middle of the desert, where he will have to earn Dom some money. We also get some more Brian and Mia flirting, where Mia finally agrees on a date. Later, while Brian is working, a known street racer Hector comes in and notices parts for the same kind of cars that are used to hijack the trucks. This makes Brian think that it could be Hector who's hijacking the trucks. Later that night, Brian decides to break into Hector's garage, where he finds out that it isn't Hector who's hijacking the trucks, but on his way out he gets caught by Dom and Vince, which convinces Vince that Brian is a cop. Despite Vince's accusations, Dom gives Brian a chance to explain, accepting his excuse that he was just checking out the competition. They decide to break into Johnny's garage to see what he's racing with, only to find boxes of electronics and 2 cars without their engines. But just when they're leaving, Johnny and his crew pull up and they proceed to torture the man who's hidden their engines. Brian tells the other cops what he saw, and his boss thinks they should arrest Johnny, but Brian doesn't think that they have enough evidence to arrest him. Brian and Mia go on their date, and during it another truck gets hijacked, and later that night Brian gets a call from his boss asking him to greenlight the arrest of Johnny Tran, and Brian gives them the go ahead. After the arrest of Johnny Tran, they found out that electronics were bought legally, leaving only minor charges, which only leaves one suspect, Dom, and Brian just has to accept it and not let his feelings for Mia get in the way. With the car is complete, Brian and Dom take it out for a test ride, where we get this iconic scene.
Nice car. What's the retail on one of those?
More than you can afford, pal. Ferrari.
And fun fact, this guy is actually the producer of the movie. And if you're wondering, Brian did in fact smoke him. They stop at a crab shack where Brian asks Dom where he gets all his money from, since there's no way he can afford everything from just doing tune-ups and selling groceries. Dom says that depending on his performance at Race Wars, Dom will tell him. At Race Wars, Jesse decides to race for his car's pink slips, and just like when Brian raced for pink slips, Jesse loses his car and he loses it to Johnny Tran. And in my opinion, there are 2 reasons why Jesse lost the race. The first being that Jesse just isn't the best racer, and the second being that Johnny's magic shirt that switched from a black long sleeve shirt to a black tank top somehow had an effect on Johnny's car, making him faster and therefore beating Jesse. Now I think it's the second reason, but I would like to know which one you think. Jesse drives away instead of giving Johnny the car, so Johnny drives over to Dom and confronts him and accuses him of snitching on Johnny to the cops, which Dom doesn't like and punches Johnny and starts beating him until he's dragged away. Later that night, Brian accidentally overhears Mia and Dom arguing about something, and Dom and the rest of the team driving away. So Brian asks Mia where they're going, but she insists that she doesn't know. So Brian reveals to her that he is a cop so that she can help him stop them. But despite Mia's help, they aren't able to get to Dom and his team in time to stop them from hijacking the truck, and Vince gets hurt really bad. So bad in fact that if he is rushed to a hospital in 10 minutes he will die. So Brian has to blow his cover in front of Dom so that Vince can get to a hospital quickly. Back in LA, Brian goes and tries to talk to Dom, but Dom just wants to find Jesse before Johnny does. And that's when Jesse shows up, but so does Johnny and Lance on dirt bikes with guns, and they start shooting towards them and ends up killing Jesse. So Brian and Dom jump into their respective cars and start to chase Johnny and Lance. Dom is able to knock Lance off a cliff and Brian is able to shoot Johnny off his bike. And when Brian goes to check on Johnny, you can hear and kinda see him close the car door behind him. But when Brian sees Dom driving away and decides to follow him, the car door is open. Brian follows Dom down to the docks, where Dom tells him that he used to race there in high school and that on green he's going for it. And they race, but unfortunately during the race Dom crashes, and as they hear police sirens approaching, Brian gives Dom the keys to his car, telling him,
I owe you a 10-second car.
and Dom takes the car and drives away.